Greetings from Florida. The warmth of being home is a reminder why I've chosen public service. From joining the United States Navy and serving in Iraq, to representing the people in the U.S. Congress, and now serving as governor of Florida. And it reminds me why I decided to run for president, to fight for those who have been forgotten in this country. This is America's time for choosing. We can choose to allow a border invasion, or we can choose to stop it. We can choose reckless borrowing and spending, or we can choose to limit government and lower inflation. We can choose political indoctrination, or we can choose classical education. These choices are symptoms of the underlying struggle to ensure that constitutional government can endure and that Western civilization can survive. And we launched this campaign to bring accountability to government, regain sovereignty at our border, and restore sanity to our society. We cannot succeed as a country if we allow our nation to be invaded, our currency to be debased, our cities to crumble, and our kids to be indoctrinated. The DC elites who facilitated this mess do not care about you, and they do not work for you. They work for themselves. They seek to accumulate power at your expense to pursue an agenda that is harmful to the American people. Citizens do not serve politicians. It is the duty of politicians to serve you. Talk is cheap. Actions speak louder than words. Reversing the decline of this nation requires leadership that delivers big results for the people we are elected to serve. I have a record of leading with conviction, championing an agenda marked by bold colors, delivering on my promises, and defeating the people who are responsible for our nation's decline. That is the type of leadership we need for all of America. Now, over the past many months, Casey and I have traveled across the country to deliver a message of hope that decline is a choice and that we can, in fact, succeed again as a nation. Nobody worked harder, and we left it all out on the field. Now, following our second place finish in Iowa, we've prayed and deliberated on the way forward. If there was anything I could do to produce a favorable outcome, more campaign stops, more interviews, I would do it. But I can't ask our supporters to volunteer their time and donate their resources if we don't have a clear path to victory. Accordingly, I am today suspending my campaign. I'm proud to have delivered on 100% of my promises, and I will not stop now. It's clear to me that a majority of Republican primary voters want to give Donald Trump another chance. They watch his presidency get stymied by relentless resistance, and they see Democrats using lawfare this day to attack him. Well, I've had disagreements with Donald Trump, such as on the coronavirus pandemic and his elevation of Anthony Fauci. Trump is superior to the current incumbent, Joe Biden. That is clear. I signed a pledge to support the Republican nominee, and I will honor that pledge. He has my endorsement because we can't go back to the old Republican guard of yesteryear, a repackaged form of warmed-over corporatism that Nikki Haley represents. The days of putting Americans last, of kowtowing to large corporations, of caving to woke ideology are over. I thank all of our passionate supporters who have stood by us through it all. That we had people volunteer to come to Iowa in the middle of a blizzard to knock on doors and make phone calls touched us dearly. No candidate had more thrown at him, but no candidate had so many committed volunteers and staff. Finally, I want to thank my wife, Casey, and our kids, Madison, Mason, and Mamie. Casey's gone far above and beyond in her support for our campaign and for our cause. She's not only a great wife and mother, she's a great American who cares deeply about the future of the country that our kids will inherit. Our kids have seen and done a lot on the trail, from playing on the famed Field of Dreams baseball site in Iowa to making their first snowman in New Hampshire. They are one of the reasons we fight so hard for what we believe in. Winston Churchill once remarked that success is not final, failure is not fatal, it is the courage to continue that counts. While this campaign has ended, the mission continues. Down here in Florida, we will continue to show the country how to lead. Thank you, and God bless.
Eric, thank you. Right now, we're going to bring in outnumbered co-host and former White House press secretary, Kayleigh McEnany. Kayleigh, good to see you. And by the way, earlier today on Fox News Live, we referenced a poll showing the undeclared voters in New Hampshire, the Republican primary there that everybody's talking about. And 41% supported the former president and 49% support Haley. But can we assume that Trump will gain more independent voters there in New Hampshire?
You know, we'll see. I think right now what everyone's looking at is what you've been reporting, which is DeSantis dropping out. And look, Ramaswamy dropped out, and I realized he was only bringing in about 5%, give or take. However, Ramaswamy dropped out after Iowa on the night of the Iowa caucuses last Monday. Since then, there were 3 polls, and each of those 3 polls showed Donald Trump at 50% or higher. So it appears that last little percent from Ramaswamy went over to Donald Trump. I suspect what you will see here on Tuesday is the 6% DeSantis was bringing in. And it's not all, a homogenous group. There will be people who break off and stay home or go for perhaps Nikki Haley. But you will see, I think, perhaps this bolster Trump, give a tailwind behind him. I still think Nikki Haley picks up that independent vote. 40% of this state is the independent undeclared vote. But can she pull off John McCain numbers? John McCain in 2000 beat George W. Bush, and it was with independents. So the big question for Nikki Haley is, can you pick up that group that puts enough of a tailwind behind you to eclipse the group of Ramaswamy and DeSantis voters that I believe will be backing Trump?
Well, if that is her plight, if you will, Nikki Haley is already saying, hey, listen, guys, I'm the conservative here. I was a Tea Party governor. This is who you want. You want to return to something that's more, quote unquote, normal in terms of the Republican policy, et cetera. So do you think that particular message, Kayleigh, will not only resonate with independents, Republicans in New Hampshire, but also going forward, because we have to look ahead, and that's what she's looking at, and everybody else is, as to they're sort of expecting that perhaps Trump has such momentum that he's going to derail her train sooner than later. What do you see?
Yeah, and that's the big question, because, look, Nikki Haley's staring down South Carolina, her home state. Her home state now shows 52% supporting Donald Trump. So if Trump has a good night in New Hampshire, he is very likely to have a good night in South Carolina. Now, if I'm the folks on Nikki Haley's team, what I'm saying to her is this. You now have a 2-person race. You have Trump, you have Nikki Haley. You're looking at Super Tuesday, 16 states coming to you in March. 12 of those 16 states allow independents to vote. So if you have a good showing in New Hampshire, you're still likely going to lose your home state. No one wants to lose your home state. You're looking at Super Tuesday, where it's a 2-person race, and 12 of the 16 allow independents to vote. But the Trump momentum is huge, and especially if he gets north of 50%, that would be a big deal. Just winning New Hampshire, to put it in perspective, would be an enormous deal. No Republican candidate in an open primary has won both Iowa and New Hampshire since 1976. So just winning is big. Winning a majority is big. But Nikki Haley may be in this for the long haul. She's wanted a 2-person race. That's what she's called for. Well, now she's got it. And can she capitalize and make gains on that 2-person race?
And Kayleigh, you mentioned Super Tuesday, because so far we've been focusing on New Hampshire and Iowa. Super Tuesday is a different ball game. Do you think abortion will come back into the forefront? Because that is something that is on the minds of the independent voters.
Look, in a Republican primary, likely not. Yes, you're right, among that independent group, yes. But make no mistake, Arthel, abortion is going to be one of the key issues. It might not be, number 1, number 2, or number 3 in terms of polling, but this is one of those wedge issues that you point to, where Republicans have lost every single ballot initiative on abortion post-Roe, every single one. Kansas, Ohio, the list goes on. And abortion's going to be in about 10 states on the ballot. Florida looks likely, among other states. So this issue is not going away. The Republican messenger on this issue needs to speak from a place of compassion. We are pro-baby as a party, and that's a beautiful and wonderful thing. But you have to be pro-mother. And DeSantis, for his campaign, everyone's going to write their postmortems of his campaign. But I would urge the analysts to go back and look at how he spoke about abortion in the last 2 weeks, particularly. He talked about maternal health care. He talked about making child care products tax-free in Florida. We as a party must be pro-mother because we're looking down a very dim election road should we not change our rhetoric on abortion.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.